Every culture on Earth has developed its own way of dressing, not simply to cover the body or protect against the cold, but to say something, to declare who a person is, where they come from, what they believe, and what moment in life they are standing in. Clothing, at its deepest level, is a language, and traditional garments are the oldest sentences ever written in that language, stitched together over centuries, passed down through generations, and worn today by billions of people who carry their history on their shoulders without ever needing to say a word. From the silk-draped islands of Japan to the highland mountains of Scotland, from the Andes to the Arabian Peninsula, from the rivers of Vietnam to the plains of West Africa, every corner of the world has produced a garment that belongs to it completely. Here are all kinds of traditional clothing from around the world explained.
Kimono. It stands as one of the most instantly recognized traditional garments on the planet, and its origins trace back over 1,000 years to the islands of Japan. The word itself carries a meaning as simple as the garment's philosophy: thing to wear. Yet beneath that simplicity lies centuries of cultural refinement. The kimono is a full-length robe cut straight from shoulder to hem, with wide, elegant sleeves and a front that wraps left over right, held in place by a broad, structured sash at the waist known as an obi. Silk, cotton, and fine synthetic blends are the fabrics of choice, and the surface of each kimono tells its own story through hand-painted motifs, woven patterns, and seasonal imagery drawn from nature. The colors selected and the designs displayed are never arbitrary. They communicate the age, marital status, and the occasion of the person wearing them. In contemporary Japan, the kimono has stepped back from daily life, but remains the definitive garment for festivals, tea ceremonies, weddings, and moments where cultural identity is worn with intention.
Sari. Few garments on earth can claim the longevity, the geographic reach, or the sheer elegance of the sari. Worn by women across India, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka, it is among the oldest forms of clothing still in active, everyday use anywhere in the modern world. What makes the sari remarkable is its construction, or rather, its lack of one. It is a single, unstitched length of fabric, typically stretching between 5 and 9 meters, that is draped around the body entirely through wrapping and tucking, with no cuts and no seams. The fabric itself varies widely: fine silk for celebrations, breathable cotton for daily wear, and delicate chiffon or georgette for formal occasions. And the surface carries everything from hand-embroidered motifs to richly woven borders and block-printed designs. Worn over a fitted blouse called a choli and a petticoat underneath, the sari transforms a piece of cloth into an expression of regional identity, personal style, and centuries of tradition.
Hanbok. Korea's traditional dress carries within it a philosophy of harmony between the human form and the natural world. The hanbok has been worn on the Korean Peninsula for thousands of years, and what has always defined it is not complexity, but balance. Vibrant color, clean silhouette, and a graceful flow that feels both refined and effortless. For women, the hanbok pairs a short wrap jacket called a joguri with a high-waisted full skirt known as a chima that falls in soft, generous folds to the floor. For men, the same joguri jacket is worn above loose, comfortable trousers called baji. Silk and ramie were the fabrics of tradition, and color was never chosen casually. Each shade carried symbolic meaning, rooted in nature and in the philosophical values of the society. Today, the hanbok is preserved and celebrated during Korea's major holidays, at weddings, and at any occasion where the depth of Korean cultural heritage deserves to be honored.
Thobe. Across the Arabian Peninsula, from Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates to Qatar and Kuwait, the thobe stands as the defining garment of men's traditional dress.
It is an ankle-length robe, most commonly made from white cotton, and its design is a masterclass in functional elegance. The white fabric reflects the intense heat of the desert sun, while the loose cut allows air to circulate freely around the body, making it remarkably well suited to the climate it was born in. Long sleeves, a structured collar band, and a neat row of buttons running down the front give it a polished and dignified appearance. In the cooler months, heavier fabrics in darker tones replace the lightweight summer cotton. The thobe moves between the everyday and the formal effortlessly, elevated by the quality of its fabric and the precision of its tailoring. It is typically completed with a gutra headscarf held in place by the circular cord known as an agal, together forming one of the most quietly commanding traditional looks in the world.
Kilt. There are few garments in the world that carry the weight of national identity quite like the Scottish kilt. A knee-length pleated skirt worn by men, the kilt is woven from wool in a tartan pattern, that unmistakable grid of crossing bands of color that has served for centuries as a visual language of clan, family, and regional belonging. Every Scottish clan historically laid claim to its own unique tartan, making the fabric itself a declaration of who a man was and where he came from. Worn with a sporran at the front, knee-high socks, and a formal jacket for ceremonial occasions, the kilt presents a silhouette that is both ancient and striking. Its origins were practical, a tough outdoor garment built for the rugged landscape of the Scottish Highlands. But over the centuries, it transformed into something far more powerful. Today it appears at weddings, Highland games, military parades, and national celebrations as one of the most enduring symbols of Scottish pride and cultural continuity.
Dirndl. In the alpine regions of Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, the dirndl has dressed women for generations and remains one of the most beloved expressions of Central European folk tradition. It is a garment built from distinct layers: a fitted bodice cut low at the neckline, a light blouse worn beneath it, a full skirt that falls gracefully below the knee, and an apron tied at the front, whose bow carries a meaning all its own. The side on which the apron bow is tied has long served as a quiet social signal, communicating at a glance whether a woman is single, in a relationship, married, or widowed. Cotton, linen, and silk are the fabrics most commonly used, and the surface is typically decorated with floral embroidery and richly colored printed patterns. While the dirndl today is most visible during Oktoberfest and regional festivals across German-speaking countries, it carries with it a deep connection to the alpine communities that shaped it over centuries.
Dashiki.
Bold in color, generous in cut, and rich in cultural meaning, the dashiki is one of West Africa's most globally recognized contributions to the world of traditional dress. It is a loose garment that covers the upper body, made typically from lightweight cotton to suit the warm climates of the regions where it originated. What immediately distinguishes the dashiki is the elaborately embroidered V-shaped collar panel and the vibrant patterns that cover its surface, combinations of color and geometric design that are deeply rooted in West African artistic tradition. The word itself is drawn from the Yoruba language, meaning simply shirt, but the garment carries a significance far beyond its name. During the cultural and political movements of the 1960s, the dashiki traveled beyond Africa and became an international symbol of African pride, heritage, and identity. Today, it is worn across the African continent and around the world, as everyday clothing, as festive dress, and as a statement of cultural belonging.
Cheongsam. China's most iconic contribution to the world of women's fashion is a garment of extraordinary refinement.
The Cheongsam, also known as the Qipao, emerged during the Qing dynasty and evolved through the 20th century into the sleek, precisely tailored silhouette that is recognized globally today. It is a form-fitting dress defined by a high mandarin collar, a structured bodice that follows the line of the body closely, and a skirt with a slit, sometimes on one side, sometimes both, that allows movement without compromising elegance. Silk brocade, satin, and hand-embroidered cloth are the traditional materials, decorated with florals, geometric patterns, and imagery drawn from Chinese artistic heritage. The fastening is achieved through traditional knotted buttons called frogs, a small but distinctive detail that is unmistakably Chinese in character. The cheongsam is worn at weddings, formal banquets, and cultural celebrations, and it continues to represent a vision of Chinese femininity that is simultaneously classic and enduring. Poncho. Long before it became a global fashion staple, the poncho was a garment born of necessity in one of the most demanding environments on Earth. Its origins lie with the indigenous peoples of the Andes Mountains in South America, in the highlands of Peru, Bolivia, Chile, and Ecuador, where cold winds, altitude, and unpredictable weather demanded clothing that was simple, warm, and effective. The poncho answers all three requirements with a single piece of fabric, rectangular or oval, with a hole cut at the center for the head, worn draped over the shoulders and falling down over the body on all sides. Woven from the wool of alpacas and llamas, traditional Andean ponchos carry patterns and colors that function as a visual map of identity, each combination of design and hue identifying the specific community and geographic region of the maker. That connection between pattern and place makes every poncho a wearable piece of cultural geography.
Áo Dai, Vietnam's national garment, moves with a quality that is difficult to describe without seeing it. A combination of structure and flow that makes it one of the most graceful traditional costumes in all of Southeast Asia. The Áo Dai is a long-fitted silk tunic, high-collared and long-sleeved, worn over wide-legged trousers in a matching or carefully complementary color. From the waist downward, the tunic is split on both sides, creating two elegant panels, one at the front, one at the back, that drift and ripple with every step. White Áo Dai were traditionally the dress of young women and students, carrying connotations of purity and youth, while richer colors were reserved for older women and for celebrations. At weddings, national ceremonies, school graduations, and formal events, the Áo Dai appears as a living expression of Vietnamese identity, delicate in its construction, deliberate in its symbolism, and unmistakable in its beauty.
Lederhosen. In the mountains and valleys of Bavaria, Austria, and the broader Alpine region, Lederhosen have long been the working dress of rural men, and they are built to prove it. The name translates directly from German as leather trousers, and that is precisely what they are. Short or knee-length trousers crafted from tanned leather, traditionally sourced from deer or goat hide, chosen for its exceptional durability against the demands of outdoor labor. What distinguishes Lederhosen visually are the embroidered suspenders that cross over the shoulders and connect to the waistband, along with decorative stitching and embroidery on the front bib and along the seams. These details transform a purely functional garment into something with character and craftsmanship. What began as the practical clothing of alpine farmers and hunters has, over generations, become one of the most vivid expressions of Bavarian cultural identity, appearing today at Oktoberfest and regional festivals as a proud and spirited link to the past.
Kaftan. Among the oldest garments in recorded human history, the kaftan has traveled across centuries and continents without ever losing its relevance. Its origins reach back to ancient Mesopotamia,
and from there it spread across the Middle East, North Africa, Central Asia, and West Africa, adapting to each culture it encountered while retaining its essential character. A long, loose robe with wide sleeves, generous proportions, and a silhouette designed as much for dignity as for comfort. The fabrics used in its finest forms are among the most luxurious available: silk, brocade, velvet, and richly embroidered cloth, decorated along the collar, cuffs, and hem with gold thread, intricate patterns, and craftsmanship that could take weeks to complete. In the courts of the Ottoman Empire, elaborately decorated kaftans were the exclusive dress of sultans and high nobility, making them as much a political statement as a garment. Today, the kaftan is worn across cultures, as everyday dress in warm climates, as ceremonial attire at weddings and religious celebrations, and as a garment that carries within every thread a history spanning thousands of years.
Sarong. Simple in its construction, but extraordinary in its cultural reach, the sarong is a garment that connects communities across Southeast Asia, South Asia, East Africa, and the Pacific Islands through a shared tradition of wearing a single length of fabric wrapped around the lower body. In Indonesia, it is the batik-printed kain. In Malaysia, it is the sarong. In Thailand, the Philippines, and across the Indian Ocean, it takes different names, but the same essential form: fabric tied or tucked at the waist, falling in folds that create a skirt-like silhouette requiring neither needle nor thread to assemble. The patterns woven or printed into the fabric are among the richest visual traditions in the world: intricate batik designs in Java, hand-woven ikat patterns in Bali, and bold geometric prints across East Africa, each one carrying the artistic identity of the community it comes from. The sarong functions as everyday dress, ceremonial garment, beachwear, and in Muslim communities across the region, as clothing appropriate for prayer. It is a garment defined not by complexity, but by the depth of meaning carried within its folds.
Sherwani. When it comes to the formal dress traditions of the Indian subcontinent, few garments command the room quite like the sherwani. Worn by men in India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, it is a long, structured coat that falls to the knee or below, buttoned from the collar down through the chest, and cut with a silhouette that manages to be simultaneously imposing and refined. The fabrics used in its finest versions, silk, brocade, velvet, and heavily embroidered cloth, are chosen for their richness and their ability to carry the elaborate surface decoration that defines the sherwani at its most formal. Gold and silver embroidery in a technique known as zardozi covers the collar, cuffs, and front panel in patterns of extraordinary intricacy. Worn over fitted churidar or salwar trousers, the sherwani transforms the man wearing it, most often a groom on his wedding day, into a figure that looks as though he has stepped out of a royal court. It is a garment that understands the weight of the occasion it is made for, and meets that weight with complete authority.
Every garment covered in this video began the same way, as a practical answer to a specific problem. The thobe was born from desert heat, the poncho from Andean cold, the kilt from the rugged demands of highland life, the sari from the ingenuity of draping a single length of cloth into something extraordinary. But somewhere along the way, each of these garments became something far greater than the problem it was designed to solve. It became a symbol, a story, a visual declaration of identity that no other language could express as precisely or as beautifully. The world has never agreed on very much,
But it has always agreed on this, that what we wear matters, that the cloth we choose to wrap around ourselves carries meaning, and that some garments, no matter how much time passes, will never stop being